Hello, everyone. I'm Rann DeStefano with Indiana Youth Group. I'm the Senior Director of HR and Operations here, and Indiana Youth Group is in its 34th year of serving youth, LGBTQ youth to be specific, and we serve basic needs, case management, as well as programming in general. So, those are just some of the services we offer here at 3733 North Meridian. So, if you're ever in the area, please arrange a tour and we'll be glad to show you around. Now, as far as the topic tonight that we're talking about, or today, what I would say about resumes and what to put on them, what not to put on them, when it's safe to come out at work, etc. Here are my thoughts on that subject. It's very, very individual. It depends on what you are comfortable with, first of all. So, everybody's at a different stage of coming out or being out. Some of us who were older came out at different times in our life, just like you did. And at that time, things were a lot different. So, as far as today, again, it's up to you. But what I would suggest as an HR person of over 25 years is that you keep your resume with facts, meaning the facts of what you've done, the facts of organizations you've been involved with, anything you're comfortable putting on there that's relevant to the job. I think that's the biggest thing I can tell you is keep everything relevant to the job because you can only put so much on a resume and it's got to 9 times out of 10 it's got to get through a filter and that filter is looking for keywords. So if your resume doesn't have those keywords that are from the job posting, then it's not going to get through the filter and you're going to get a rejection letter pretty quickly. So the fact of whether or not you have some, let's say, LGBTQ related organizations that you've been involved with isn't really going to make a lot of difference at that point in the stage of the whole process. But later on it could when a person is actually looking at it. So what you have to ask yourself is what am I comfortable with? Also, what kind of industry or place is this? Are they a fairly liberal place? Are they pretty open minded? Are they really doing a good job on diversity initiatives? All that kind of stuff has to go into your decision. Some people are just open and they're just very willing to put whatever. Now, I will say that in this conservative state that we live in, I do think that puts you at some risk if you happen to come across a bigoted person looking at your resume. And you can't always live your life worrying about that. So, again, make your decision based on all the known facts. And I would say, when I say keep it to the facts, I mean the facts of the jobs you've done, the things you've done. Focus on that. And like I said earlier, look at the job posting and really look for those keywords and make sure they are on your resume. So, the best advice I can offer as far as resumes and cover letters is you have to customize them for each job you're applying for. When I was unemployed about 2.5 years ago, right before I got this job at Indiana Youth Group, I was learning a lot because I hadn't been in the workforce looking for a job. I mean, for 16 years. I was at my last job 16 years. Believe me, a lot changed in 16 years. However, I went to a group called Passport to Employment that helped a lot, and this is where I learned all these little tricks. And one of them is to customize your resume each time to that particular. Now, it's a lot of work. There's a lot more work involved, but once I started doing that, it really did help. There are other things that they teach at Passport to Employment, which, by the way, is a free service to anyone in the Indianapolis area. So yeah, I definitely recommend things like that because you can have a great resume, but if it does not match up with what they're looking for as far as those keywords, it may never get through to a person. Also, one of the things that I stress and they stress is if you happen to know someone in that business or that company, try to get your resume sent by them, by their hands, straight to the human resources or the hiring manager. Now, the other thing that's a topic for today is when is it safe to come out? If you're not out through the interview process, when is it safe to come out when you're at the new job? Well, again, it depends on the environment you're in, and it depends on what your sense is of how they are. So, you can test the waters different ways and say some things and just kind of see what the response is. But, some people they just don't care and they just want to be themselves, and I'm all for that. However, I do think it's in your best interest to test the waters and just see. And the good news is that maybe by you coming out when you're comfortable doing so, you'll help encourage someone else and they will later come out like you did, or that you'll help sort of set the standard or establish the precedent. One little story I want to share with you is when I was looking for a job last time, I went into one particular interview and the lady said, "Well, I'm going to be taking notes on the computer, so please don't let that distract you that I have a cute computer in front of me." Well, I didn't, so that was fine. I'm glad she told me. She wasn't just fiddling on the internet or something. So, anyway, at some point, I'm using my legal name when I do all the job searches because that just makes sense. So, my legal name is not the name I generally go by, and there's a lot of information on the internet under that name the Rann DeStefano, that is not necessarily under my legal name. So during the interview, I happened to mention that other name, which is Rand, that I use. And she kind of looked at me and then she was doing her typing and we were still talking. And at some point, I noticed a change in her tone, a change in her attitude. Something just seemed to change all of a sudden. And then I had a second interview the same day with another person. We did that. Everything seemed to go great in these interviews. But when I went down to see her before I left, the second lady took me down to see the original person. She had just such a different tone about her. And I really think what happened is I happened to mention that my nickname was Ran, and that's what I go by. And she looked that up and she found some things that were innocuous, but still maybe she thought we're not a good fit for that environment. It happens. And so I found out shortly after that I was turned down for the job. So the reason I'm bringing that up is to say if you have two different names like I do, the legal name and the name you go by, be very careful what you say or what you do as far as giving those two names, because I really do think that cost me that job. The good news was I found out that that was probably for the best, and then this job came up at Indiana Youth Group a month or two later, and I'm so glad that I didn't get the other job. But there are many opportunities that come your way, and the thing is to think about each one, do your research, and make sure that it's a company you're going to be comfortable with. Because one other place that made me an offer right before this place did was a place I was somewhat comfortable with, but the more I thought about it, there were some things I was concerned about in the environment. Being a gay man, that I thought that could be a problem in that environment. So if you have multiple offers, in this case, it was easy for me to decide for many reasons that Indiana Youth Group was the best place for me. And partially because I can be open, honest, and be myself, and anyone can here at Indiana Youth Group. So I wish you all the best in your endeavors, in your job search, in your resume building. And please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. You can email me. Just find me on the Indiana Youth Group website. Everybody take care, and I hope this information was helpful.